Dr. Kate stood at the observation window of the survey vessel Horizon's Edge and watched the frozen world below. 7 was a planet of ice and storms. White clouds swirled across its surface like angry spirits. No sunlight ever touched the ground. The planet orbited a dying star that gave almost no warmth, and everything below was covered in glaciers that were older than human civilization. Kate had been for 11 years. She had studied alien life on 6 different planetary systems. She had seen creatures that glowed in the dark, creatures that lived in boiling acid, and creatures that were made almost entirely of gas. But she had never seen a planet as hostile as 7. The Galactic Union had marked it as uninhabitable. Their reports said nothing intelligent lived there, just ice and rock and endless cold. But the thermal scan said something different. Deep beneath the glaciers, the sensors had detected heat signatures. Something was alive down there, something big. Commander Daniel Price called a meeting in the briefing room. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had commanded the Horizon's Edge for 15 years, and he had learned to be careful. The galaxy was full of things that could kill a human, and most of them did not give warnings. Kate sat at the table with Cole, and Laura was the security officer. He was young and strong and always kept one hand near his weapon. Laura was the medic. She was quiet and kind and had saved more lives than anyone could count. Commander Price activated the holographic display. A 3-dimensional image of 7 appeared above the table. Red dots marked the heat signatures beneath the ice. The Galactic Union classified this planet as uninhabited, Price said. But these readings suggest otherwise. We are going to send a ground team to investigate. Leaned forward. What do we know about whatever is down there? Price touched the display and a new image appeared. It was a creature, massive, covered in white fur. It had claws like curved swords and teeth that could bite through metal. Its eyes were pale blue and empty of any warmth. The Union's preliminary scans identified this species, Price said. They call them apex predators, non-sapient, extremely dangerous. The official recommendation is to shoot on sight. Kate stared at the image. The creature was terrifying, but something about it made her pause, the way it stood, the way its eyes seemed to hold a kind of awareness. She had studied predators on a dozen worlds, and this one looked different somehow. I want to go down there, Kate said. Looked at her like she had lost her mind. Did you see those claws? That thing could tear you in half without even trying. I know, Kate said, but I need to see them for myself. Thermal scans and preliminary reports are not enough. If there is intelligent life on this planet, we need to know. Commander Price was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Doctor will lead the ground team. Cole, you will provide security. You will handle medical support. You have 6 hours to prepare. The shuttle dropped through the atmosphere of 7 like a stone falling through water. The wind screamed against the hull. Ice crystals hammered the windows. Kate held onto her seat and watched the frozen landscape rush up to meet them. Piloted the shuttle with steady hands. He found a flat area near one of the heat signatures and brought them down slowly. The landing was rough, but they survived. Kate stepped out of the shuttle and felt the cold hit her like a wall. Her thermal suit protected her, but she could still feel the temperature trying to reach her skin. The air was thin and bitter. The sky was gray and empty. In front of them was the entrance to an ice cavern. It was enormous. The opening was at least 50 meters wide and 30 meters tall. Darkness waited inside like a living thing. The heat signatures are coming from deep inside, Laura said, checking her scanner. About 2 kilometers in. Loaded his pulse rifle. Stay behind me, both of you. They walked into the cavern. The ice walls glowed faintly blue from some kind of mineral deposit. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. Kate felt like they were walking into the mouth of some ancient giant. The cavern system was a maze. Tunnels branched off in every direction. Some went up, some went down. Laura guided them with her scanner, following the heat signatures deeper and deeper into the frozen world. After an hour of walking, they heard something. It was a low sound, a rumble that Kate felt in her chest more than heard with her ears. It came from somewhere ahead, echoing through the ice tunnels like distant thunder. Raised his rifle. Contact. Kate put her hand on his arm. Wait, let me look first. She moved forward slowly and carefully. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber, bigger than anything they had seen so far. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Strange ice formations hung down like frozen waterfalls. And there, in the center of the chamber, were the creatures from the holographic display. There were 6 of them. They were even bigger than Kate had imagined. The largest one stood over 3 meters tall. Its white fur was thick and matted. Its claws scraped against the ice floor with every step. Its jaws could have swallowed Kate whole. But Kate was not looking at their size or their weapons. She was looking at what they were doing. One of the creatures was holding something. It looked like a tool, a sharp piece of rock attached to a handle made of bone. Another creature was using a similar tool to carve something into the ice wall. Symbols, patterns, pictures. They were not just predators, they were artists. Kate watched as the creatures moved through the chamber. They communicated with low, rumbling sounds. They touched each other gently. They looked at the carvings on the wall with what could only be called appreciation. They are intelligent, Kate whispered into her comm. Commander, the classification is wrong. These beings are people. Before Price could respond, the largest creature stopped moving. Its head turned slowly. Its pale blue eyes, ancient and knowing, looked directly at the spot where Kate was hiding. The creature had seen her. It opened its massive jaws and roared. The sound was so loud that ice fell from the ceiling. The other creatures turned toward the entrance. Their claws extended. Their teeth gleamed. Kate did not run. She did not hide. She stood there in the entrance of the chamber, small and soft and completely defenseless, and she watched the creatures that the Galactic Union had told her to kill on sight. She had come here looking for intelligent life. She had found it. Now she just had to survive long enough to prove it. The roar of the creature echoed through the ice cavern like an explosion. Kate felt her bones shake. The sound was so powerful that it seemed to come from everywhere at once. Behind her, raised his pulse rifle and took aim at the largest creature. "Do not shoot," Kate said. Kept his weapon raised. "It is going to charge us. I can see it in the way it is standing." Kate looked at the creature. Was right. The massive beast was preparing to attack. Its muscles tensed beneath its white fur. Its claws dug into the ice. Its pale blue eyes were fixed on the intruders who had entered its home. But then something changed. The creature turned its head suddenly. It looked past Kate and then Laura. It looked at something behind them, deeper in the tunnel system, and the expression on its face changed from anger to something else entirely. It was fear. The creature charged, but it did not charge at them. It ran past them so fast that the wind of its passing nearly knocked Kate off her feet. The other creatures in the chamber followed. They moved like a pack of wolves responding to some silent alarm. Kate turned and ran after them. "What are you doing?" shouted. "Something is wrong," Kate called back. "Did you see its face? Something scared it." They followed the creatures through a narrow tunnel that Kate had not noticed before. The ice walls pressed close on both sides. The air grew colder somehow, which should have been impossible. Kate could hear the creatures ahead of her, their massive bodies scraping against the tunnel walls. The tunnel opened into a smaller chamber. Kate stopped at the entrance and saw what had frightened the largest creature. There was a smaller being lying against the ice wall. It was one of the same species but much smaller, barely a meter tall. Its white fur was covered in frost. Its body was completely still. It was a young one, a cub. The largest creature skidded to a halt beside the small body. It dropped to its knees. It made a sound that Kate had never heard before. It was not a roar. It was not a growl. It was a cry of pure pain, pure grief, the kind of sound that crosses all languages and all species. The creature nudged the cub with its massive head. It pushed gently at the small body, trying to wake it. The cub did not respond. Its chest was barely moving. Its eyes were closed. Kate understood immediately. The cub was dying, hypothermic shock. The cold had gotten into its small body and was shutting everything down. Without help, it would be dead in minutes. Laura moved up beside Kate and checked her medical scanner. The cubs are critical. Its core temperature has dropped too low. The respiratory system is failing. If we do not do something right now, it will die. Kate looked at the cub, then she looked at the father. Because that is what the large creature was. Kate could see it now. The way it touched the cub. The way it kept making those sounds of grief and desperation. This was a father watching his child die, and there was nothing in the universe more dangerous than that. The father looked up. His eyes found Kate, and in that moment she saw intelligence. She saw awareness. She saw a being who knew exactly what was happening and was powerless to stop it. Kate stepped forward, grabbed her arm. Kate, stop. That creature will kill you. It is 3 times your size and it is terrified and angry. You walk toward it and it will tear you apart. Kate looked at, her voice was calm and steady. That creature is watching his child die. I can help, I have to try. She pulled her arm free and walked toward the father and the dying cub. The father rose to his full height, 3 meters of muscle and fury and despair. He placed himself between Kate and his child. His lips pulled back to reveal teeth that were longer than her entire hand. A growl built in his chest. It was a warning. Come closer and die. Kate kept walking. The other creatures had gathered around the chamber. They watched in silence. Some of them growled. Some of them shifted nervously. None of them attacked. They were waiting to see what their leader would do. Kate stopped 2 meters from the father. She slowly raised her hands, showing him that she held no weapons. Her palms were open. Her body was relaxed. Every part of her was trying to communicate the same message. I am not a threat. I want to help. I know you cannot understand my words, Kate said softly, but I think you can understand me. Your baby is dying. The cold has gotten into its body and it cannot warm itself anymore. I have seen this before. I know how to fix it, but you have to let me near your child. The father did not move. His growl continued, low and dangerous. Kate took another step forward. I am asking for your trust. I know I have not earned it. I know you have no reason to believe me, but your child does not have time for me to earn it. Please, let me help. The father's eyes were locked on hers. Kate could see the war happening inside him. Every instinct was telling him to attack. Every instinct was telling him to protect his cub from this strange, small creature that had invaded his home. But somewhere beneath those instincts, there was something else. There was a father who loved his child more than anything in the universe. The cub made a small sound, a weak, trembling sound that was barely more than a whisper. The father's head turned toward his child, and in that moment of distraction, Kate saw her chance. She did not take it. She did not try to rush past the father. She did not try to trick him. Instead, she stood perfectly still and waited. The father looked back at her. His eyes were different now. The rage was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Desperation, hope, fear. Kate held his gaze and spoke again. I will not hurt your baby. I give you my word, whatever that means to you. However you understand promises, I give you mine. Let me save your child. Behind her was trembling. His finger was on the trigger of his rifle. Laura was holding her medical kit, ready to move if Kate gave the signal. The father took a deep breath. His massive chest expanded. The growl in his throat slowly faded. Then he stepped aside. Kate moved instantly. She dropped to her knees beside the cub. Its small body was cold, so cold. She could barely feel a heartbeat under her fingers. There was almost no time left. "Laura," Kate said, "I need you now." The medic ran forward. The father watched them both with eyes that held every emotion a thinking being could feel. Hope and fear and love and despair, all mixed together in those pale blue depths. Kate pulled off her thermal jacket and wrapped it around the cub. It was not much, but it was something. She positioned the small head to clear the airway. She placed her hands on its tiny chest. And she began to fight for its life. Kate pressed her hands against the cub's chest and began compressions. The small body felt fragile under her palms. She could feel the tiny ribs. She could feel how close to death this little creature was. Every second mattered now. Laura knelt beside her with the medical kit open. She was scanning the cub with her equipment, reading the vital signs, trying to understand the alien biology well enough to help. "Its heart is barely beating," Laura said. "The hypothermia has slowed everything down. We need to raise its core temperature, but I do not know how much heat is safe for this species." Kate did not stop her compressions. "We start slow, warm it gradually. Too fast and we could cause shock." The father stood over them like a mountain. He watched every movement Kate made. His breathing was heavy and rough. Every muscle in his body was tense. He wanted to protect his child, but he did not know how. He had let these strange, small creatures near his cub because he had no other choice. Kate counted under her breath. 1 compression, 2 compressions, 3. She tilted the cub's head back and breathed into its mouth. The technique was designed for humans, but the basic principle was the same for any creature that breathed air. Get oxygen into the lungs. Get the heart pumping. Keep the blood moving. The cub did not respond. Kate kept going. Compression, compression, compression. Breathe. She could feel the cold seeping through her clothes. Without her thermal jacket, the temperature of the cavern was starting to affect her too. Her fingers were growing numb. Her breath came out in white clouds. "Come on," she whispered to the cub. "Come on, little one, stay with me." One of the other creatures moved forward. It was smaller than the father, but still enormous compared to Kate. It growled and took another step toward the humans. The father turned his head and made a sharp sound. The other creature stopped. It looked at the father with confusion and fear. The father growled again, lower this time. It was a command, "Stay back." The other creature retreated. Kate did not look up. She kept her focus on the cub. Compression, compression, compression. Breathe. Her arms were starting to burn from the effort. Her back ached, but she did not stop. Laura pulled a thermal blanket from the medical kit. It was designed to generate gentle heat, just enough to help a human body maintain its temperature. She did not know if it would work on the cub's alien physiology, but there was nothing else to try. She wrapped the blanket around the cub's body, leaving Kate room to continue the compressions. The warmth began to spread slowly into the small form. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Kate's entire world narrowed to the cub beneath her hands. She forgot about the father standing over her. She forgot about with his rifle. She forgot about the cold and the cavern and everything else. There was only the cub and the rhythm of compression and breath. Then something happened. The father made a sound. It was different from anything Kate had heard before. Not a growl, not a roar. It was almost like a word, a question. Kate looked up and saw that the father was staring at the cub's chest. She looked down. The cub's chest was moving on its own. Kate stopped her compressions and watched. The small chest rose, then it fell, then it rose again. Weak breaths, but real ones. The cub was breathing. Laura checked her scanner. Heart rate is increasing. Core temperature is rising. It is working. Kate, it is working. Kate felt something she had not felt in years. Her eyes were wet. Tears were forming, and she did not try to stop them. She had seen death on many worlds. She had lost patience before. But right now, in this frozen cavern on a planet that was supposed to be uninhabited, she was watching a child come back to life. The cub's eyes opened. They were pale blue just like its father's. They blinked slowly, trying to focus. The cub made a small sound. It was confused. It did not understand what was happening or why it felt so strange. Then it saw Kate. The cub looked at her with those blue eyes. It did not growl. It did not try to pull away. It just looked at her with something that might have been wonder. Kate smiled. "Hello, little one, welcome back." The father dropped to all fours. His massive body lowered until his head was level with Kate's. He was so close that she could feel his breath on her face. His jaws could have closed around her skull without effort. One bite and she would be dead. But he did not bite. Instead, he pressed his forehead against her shoulder. Kate froze. She did not know what this gesture meant in the creature's culture, but she could feel the emotion behind it: gratitude, relief, a father's love for his child expressed in the only way he knew how. "You are welcome," Kate whispered. Slowly lowered his rifle. His hands were still shaking. "Commander Price, are you seeing this?" The commander's voice came through the comm system, rough with emotion. "I am seeing it, Cole. I am having trouble believing it, but I am seeing it." The other creatures in the chamber had moved closer. They surrounded Kate and Laura and the cub, but not with aggression. They were watching, learning, trying to understand what had just happened. One of them made a sound. The father answered. There was a conversation happening, a real conversation in a language Kate did not understand, but she did not need to understand the words. She could read the meaning in their body language, in their eyes, in the way they looked at her. The father rose to his full height. He turned to face the other creatures. He spoke to them in that low, rumbling voice, and Kate could tell he was explaining something. He was telling them what she had done. When he finished, the other creatures looked at Kate with different eyes. Not as prey, not as a threat. As something else entirely. Laura helped Kate stand. Her legs were weak from kneeling on the ice. Her arms were sore from the compressions. She felt exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. But she also felt alive. The cub was trying to stand. It wobbled on unsteady legs. The father moved quickly, using his body to support his child. The cub leaned against him and made a sound of contentment. It was safe. It was warm. It was alive. Kate watched them together, father and child, two creatures from a species that humanity had been told to kill on sight, two people who had almost been separated forever. She had saved the cub because it was the right thing to do, because she was a doctor and a scientist and a human being who could not watch a child die without trying to help. She had not thought about what it might mean. She had not considered the consequences. But now, looking at the father and his cub, she began to understand. She had just changed everything. The hours that followed were unlike anything Kate had experienced in her career. She stayed in the ice cavern with the creatures while and Laura set up a temporary camp near the entrance. Commander Price sent additional supplies from the horizon's edge, but he did not send more people. He understood that this moment was fragile. Too many humans might break whatever trust Kate had built. The father never left his cub's side. He sat on the ice with the small creature curled against his massive body, sharing his warmth. Every few minutes he would look at Kate. His pale blue eyes held an emotion that needed no translation. He was grateful. He was confused. He was trying to understand what she was and why she had helped. Kate sat a few meters away, wrapped in a fresh thermal jacket that Laura had brought. She watched the creatures interact with each other. Now that the crisis had passed, they had relaxed. They moved through the chamber with purpose, doing things that Kate slowly recognized as daily tasks. Some of them were carving new symbols into the ice walls. Others were tending to what looked like a fire pit, though the flames burned with a strange blue color that Kate did not understand. One of the smaller creatures approached Kate slowly. It was not a cub, but it was clearly younger than the others. A teenager, perhaps, if such a concept applied to this species. It carried something in its clawed hands. Kate held very still as the creature came closer. It stopped just out of arm's reach and extended its hands toward her. It was offering her something. Kate looked down. In the creature's palms was a small stone, but it was not just any stone. It had been carved into a shape that Kate recognized. It was her. The stone had been carved to look like a human, small and soft and standing upright with its hands extended. Kate felt her breath catch in her throat. She reached out slowly and took the stone from the creature's hands. The carving was rough but unmistakable. These beings had seen her for only a few hours, and already one of them had created art to remember her by. "Thank you," Kate said softly. The young creature made a sound. It was not a growl. It was almost musical. Then it turned and walked back to the others. Laura came to sit beside Kate. She looked at the stone carving with wonder in her eyes. They are definitely intelligent. This level of artistic representation requires abstract thinking. They can see something, hold the image in their minds, and recreate it in a different medium. Kate nodded. The Galactic Union classification was completely wrong. These are not predators to be avoided. They are people to be understood. Commander Price's voice came through the comm. "Doctor, I have been in contact with Union headquarters. They are very interested in what you have found, but they are also cautious. The original reports described these creatures as extremely dangerous." Kate looked at the father, still curled protectively around his cub. "They are dangerous, just like humans are dangerous, just like any intelligent species is dangerous, but they are also capable of love and grief and gratitude. They deserve better than to be shot on sight." There was a long pause before Price responded. "I agree. I am recommending that we establish a proper first contact protocol. It will take time to get approval, but I think we can make this work." The day cycle on 7 was long. 27 hours of darkness followed by 3 hours of dim twilight when the dying star gave just enough light to turn the sky from black to gray. Kate stayed in the cavern through the entire cycle, watching and learning. The creatures had a social structure. The father was clearly a leader, but he was not the only one. There were others who seemed to hold authority. They made decisions together, discussing things in their rumbling language until they reached agreement. They had families. Kate saw parents caring for cubs, older siblings helping younger ones, elders being treated with respect and gentleness. They loved each other. That was clear in every interaction she observed. They had culture. The carvings on the ice walls told stories. Kate could not read them yet, but she could see the patterns. There were hunting scenes and gathering scenes and what looked like celebrations. There was history recorded in ice, waiting for someone to translate it. And they had names. Kate discovered this when the father finally approached her directly. The cub was sleeping now, warm and safe and recovering. The father walked across the chamber and stopped in front of Kate. He was so large that she had to crane her neck to look at his face. He placed one massive clawed hand on his own chest. Then he made a sound, a deep rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the ice itself. He repeated the sound twice. Kate understood. He was telling her his name. She tried to repeat the sound. Her human throat could not make the exact noise, but she came close enough that the father's eyes widened with something like surprise. Then he made another sound, one that Kate recognized as laughter. Kate placed her own hand on her chest. "Kate," she said clearly, "my name is Kate." The father tried to repeat it. What came out was something like a growl mixed with a whisper. It did not sound exactly right, but it was close. "Kate," she said again, and this time the father nodded. He pointed at her and made his version of the sound. Then he pointed at himself and made his own name sound. They had introduced themselves. Across the vast gulf between their species, they had taken the first step toward communication. Watched from the entrance of the chamber with his rifle finally lowered. "I never thought I would see anything like this. Two completely different life forms trying to talk to each other." Laura was taking notes on her data pad, recording everything. This is how it begins. Every relationship between species starts with two individuals deciding to try. Doctor just made first contact in the truest sense of the term. Kate spent the rest of the day learning. The father, whose name she mentally translated as Keeper of Storms because of the way it sounded, showed her around the cavern system. There were other chambers beyond this one, living spaces carved from ice, storage areas filled with frozen meat and strange plants, a place where the cubs played together, rolling and tumbling on the ice. And there was a chamber that Kate could only describe as a temple. The walls were covered in carvings, more detailed and beautiful than anything she had seen elsewhere. In the center of the chamber was a structure made of blue ice crystals. It glowed faintly with its own inner light. Keeper of Storms stood beside her in silence. He did not need to explain. Kate could feel the importance of this place. It was sacred to these people, and he had chosen to share it with her. She did not know why. She did not know what she had done to earn such trust, but she knew that she would honor it. When they returned to the main chamber, the cub was awake. It saw Kate and made a happy sound. Then it struggled to its feet and wobbled toward her on unsteady legs. Kate knelt down so she was at the cub's level. The small creature walked right up to her and pressed its head against her chest. It was warm now. Its breathing was strong. It was going to live. Kate wrapped her arms around the cub and held it gently. She could feel its heartbeat against her own. Two hearts from different worlds, beating together in the cold. Keeper of Storms watched them, and for the first time since Kate had arrived on this frozen planet, she saw him smile. 3 months passed after Kate's first contact with the ice world's inhabitants. In that time, everything changed. The creatures called themselves the. Their language was difficult for humans to speak, but not impossible to learn. Kate spent weeks in the caverns, building vocabulary and grammar, learning the sounds and meanings that made up their speech. The learned, too. They were fast learners, faster than anyone expected. Within 2 months, Keeper of Storms could speak basic sentences in the human language. The Galactic Union sent a diplomatic team to Seven. They came with translators and anthropologists and experts in first contact protocols, but they did not want to speak with them. They only wanted to speak with Kate. Was a diplomat. His species had been part of the Galactic Union for over 1,000 years. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They considered themselves experts in understanding alien cultures, but they confused him completely. He sat in the command center of Unity Station, watching footage from the ground team's helmet cameras for what felt like the 100th time. On the screen, Kate stood her ground against Keeper of Storms. A creature 3 times her size charged at her, and she pushed back with her bare hands. "I do not understand," said. She had no weapons, no armor, no physical advantages of any kind. They are one of the most powerful species we have ever. How did she survive? Cole was there. He had been promoted to liaison officer for the new delegation. He had watched Kate save the cub with his own eyes, and he still had trouble believing what he had seen. "She is human," said. Made a sound of frustration. "That is not an explanation. Humans are small. Humans are weak. Humans have no natural weapons. By every measure we use to classify species, humans are unremarkable." Smiled. "That is what we used to think too, before we went to the stars, before we met species like the. Then we learned something about ourselves." "What did you learn?" "We learned that strength is not just about size. It is not just about claws and teeth and armor. Strength is about what you are willing to do for others. Strength is about standing between danger and the ones who cannot protect themselves." Looked at the screen again. Kate, small and fragile, pushing against a creature that could have killed her without effort. She should have died. "Maybe," said, but she did not think about dying. She only thought about saving that cub. That is what makes humans different. The delegation arrived at Unity Station 6 months after first contact. It was the first time they had ever left their frozen world. The station's environmental systems had to be adjusted to accommodate them, lowering the temperature in one entire section to match the cold they needed to survive. Keeper of Storms led the delegation. He walked through the corridors of the station with his head held high. Other species stopped and stared. Some of them were afraid. They were enormous, and their teeth and claws made them look like monsters from ancient nightmares. But Keeper of Storms did not care about the stares. He was looking for someone. Kate waited in the diplomatic reception area. She wore her formal uniform, the one she almost never used. Her heart was beating fast. She had not seen Keeper of Storms or his cub since leaving Seven to help prepare for this visit. The doors opened. Keeper of Storms entered first. Behind him came the cub. Except the cub was not so small anymore. In 6 months it had grown significantly. It was now almost as tall as Kate. Its fur was thick and white, and its eyes were the same pale blue as its father's. The cub saw Kate and made a sound of pure joy. Then it ran across the reception area, ignoring all protocol and ceremony, and wrapped itself around her in something that could only be called a hug. Kate laughed and hugged back. "Hello, little Storm, I missed you too." Little Storm, that was the translation of the cub's name. Kate had helped choose it during those long days in the ice caverns when they were still learning to communicate. Keeper of Storms walked over slowly. The diplomats and officials stepped back nervously. The leader stopped in front of Kate and looked down at her with those ancient eyes. Then he spoke. His voice was deep and rough, but the words were clear. "You gave breath to my child. You gave warmth when there was only cold. You stood against me, knowing you could not win, because saving him mattered more than surviving me." Kate felt tears on her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. Keeper of Storms placed one massive clawed hand over his own chest. It was a gesture of deep sincerity. Do not forget, we do not abandon those who choose the cub over themselves. You are pack now, Kate. You are family. Kate had to take a moment before she could respond. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "I was just doing what any human would do." Keeper of Storms made the sound that Kate had learned was laughter. It rumbled through the reception area like distant thunder. "Yes," he said, "that is why we are here, to learn what it means to be human." The negotiations that followed were unlike any the Galactic Union had ever seen. They were not interested in the usual topics. They did not care about trade routes or territorial boundaries or technological exchange. They wanted to understand humanity. They asked about human families, about human children, about the bonds that held human society together. They asked about human history and human art and human stories. They wanted to know everything. And in return, they shared their own culture, the carvings in the ice, the stories passed down through generations, the sacred places beneath the glaciers where they honored their ancestors. A year after first contact, they formally joined the Galactic Union as a member species. It was the fastest integration in Union history, and every document they signed included a special dedication. To Kate, the breath giver, the one who pushed back the beast and knelt in the cold. Little Storm grew up knowing both worlds. He spent time on Seven with his family and time on human stations learning human ways. He became a bridge between species, able to understand both and human perspectives. And he never forgot what Kate had done for him. Years later, when he was fully grown and had cubs of his own, Little Storm would tell them the story. He would describe the day a small soft creature walked into their cavern. He would describe how she stood against his father with nothing but empty hands and words. He would describe how she knelt in the cold and gave him breath and warmth when he was dying. His cubs would ask him what humans were, why they were different from other species in the galaxy, why they mattered. And Little Storm would tell them the truth. Humans were small, humans were fragile, humans had no claws or fangs or armor. But humans had something else, something that could not be measured or something that made them stand against impossible odds, something that made them risk their lives for strangers, something that made them push back against beasts with their bare hands because a dying cub needed breath and warmth first. Humans had heart, and that made all the difference.